Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We'll get started um, in about 5 minutes or so and wait for people to log on. Okay, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining. Um, Good evening. Welcome everyone to We Cry Your Tears, the truth about suicide in the Black community. Brought to you by NAMI Cook County North Suburban and Rafiah Maxie-Cole, who's the founder of Soul Survivors of Chicago. Soul Survivors of Chicago's mission is to provide suicide prevention and mental health awareness and education to our underdeserved communities of color. Their mission is unique. They seek to enhance the importance of mental health, advocate for suicide prevention, and provide much needed emergency crisis funds to individuals impacted by suicide, trauma, or loss. Soul Survivors of Chicago works to mitigate suicide risks through their street outreach, innovative educational projects, workshops, public speaking, documentaries, and their grief support group. So my name is Courtney Hall. I'm the Adult and Family Programs Manager at NAMI Cook County North Suburban. So NAMI, which stands for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, providing public awareness, no-cost support, and education programs online and in person so that people and families affected by mental health conditions can build better lives. We're a lifeline to individuals and families who do not know what to do or to expect in their difficult life journey. We offer classes, support groups, and do a lot of advocacies for mental health. Our programs are free and open to those in our community service areas. So we're so happy to have you here tonight. This year, each month, mental health professionals will dig deep into a variety of topics to further educate us on our community members' topics of interest. So for this workshop, it will shine a light on the pressing issue of youth suicide in the Chicagoland area. We will learn about the latest statistics and trends that impact our community's young people of color and how deep-seated stigmas can silence critical conversations about mental health. We will also experience segments from the documentaries We Cry Your Tears, the Jamal Clay Story, and While the Children Fade, which bring raw, real stories to the forefront. These documentaries were inspired by the tragic loss of 19-year-old Jamal Clay. This workshop will guide us through the multifaceted lessons his story has revealed about grief, resilience, and the urgent need for change. We'll wrap up with a final discussion focused on actionable strategies to stem the rising tide of suicide in our communities. Our Q&A will be held at the end of the presentation, but if you would like to type questions into the Q&A box during our conversation, please feel free to. So our guest speaker tonight, Rafiah Maxie-Cole, is a mother advocate and licensed clinical social worker for the Department of Veteran Affairs and the founder of Soul Survivors of Chicago. Her work with Soul Survivors of Chicago centers around suicide prevention and the promotion of mental health and wellness. She produced the 2021 documentary, We Cry Your Tears, the Jamal Clay Story. In the documentary, Makes Me Wanna Holla, hearing from loss, learning from tragedy, and finding recovery. Her work has been featured in the Chicago Sun-Times, PBS NewsHour, American Association of Suicidology, Illinois Department of Public Health, and many more. So we're really excited to have her here tonight to further educate us on this important topic. So without further ado, I'm excited to welcome our guest speaker, Rafiah Maxie-Cole. I'm going to share my
screen. Can you hear me? How is my sound?
It sounds good.
Okay. Love it. Thank you so much, Courtney, for that wonderful introduction. It sounds so esteemed, and I'm very, very humbled to be with everyone today. As Courtney said, my name is Rafiah Maxie-Cole. I am the founder of Soul Survivors of Chicago. And today I am honored to talk about something that's very, very true to my heart and soul in my life, and what I am learning and what we are learning as a community. So this webinar today, We Cry Your Tears, the truth about suicide in the Black community, Chicago story. It's going to be impactful. It's going to be insightful and enlightening. So I welcome you. Next slide, please. As we come together today, I just want to say that you could have been anywhere, but today you're going to hear some things and talk about, hopefully with us, the understanding of how suicide impacts the African American community, and learn some really important details as we go forward. So welcome again. Next slide. Just some friendly reminders as people come in and we continue to go forward. Turn off your microphones if you can remember to do so. I always say if you have a good ringtone that we want to hear, you can always let us listen to it. Those songs are really cool, but otherwise it'd be great to turn any microphones off. Use headphones if you're interested for optimal value. There'll be some clips of videos that will be played, and oftentimes, sometimes having headphones helps you hear the video in a different kind of realm than on your speaker. So think about that. There is a chat, I believe, and if so, I would love for you to type your questions in, and we'll get a chance, and Courtney will help me with that and getting those things answered, of course, in our Q&A. And those questions can be entertained as well when we get to that point. So I'm looking forward to that. Next slide, please. Another thing to remember, that this is a topic that is very, very hard to speak about. So please note that instances of suicide and violence and even trauma will be mentioned. I'm going to share some resources and give you access to supports. But if you or someone you know is thinking about harming themselves or would like some emotional support, please contact, as we know, our 988 number or 800-273-8255. We also know that if someone is in crisis, 741-741 can be text to reach a crisis counselor. Thank you. And also wanted to put a shout out to NAMI for the great work they're doing to bring out the importance of the 988 number and just reiterate that if you know someone who needs help, 988 is what we in the community are now really trying to enforce. So please call and text and chat with the 988 number for a trained counselor as your need. And then mental health reminders. This is a presentation that will bring you to some thoughts and considerations. Next slide, please. So in these mental health reminders, I like to say, take breaths as you need. I will be doing so. Stretch as you need. Stay hydrated because it's really hot out there. And process feelings as you go and go forward with a trusted and safe support system. Next slide, please. So we all get that question from time to time, who am I? And I always get that question when it comes to presentations and kind of talking or just being in the regular community. Who am I? Next slide. I could answer that in so many ways, but what I do know and what I've come and learn is that I am the founder of Soul Survivors of Chicago. I'm many things, a mother, a community member, but I take pride in my foundation of Soul Survivors of Chicago. And then I'm also a mother. I'm a mother of a son. His name was Jamal, and his last name was Clay. Next slide, please. However, on May 27, 2020, 2 days after the tragic death of George Floyd, 11 months after his high school graduation, 4 months into a pandemic, and a couple weeks into a Black Lives Matter movement, my son died by way of suicide. I said his name was Jamal. He was 19 years old, and that was the worst day of my life. Next slide, please. In this interactive presentation webinar, I hope that participants will learn some of the following learning objectives. Next slide, please. So we're going to look at some learning objectives. First, in understanding the statistics of suicide in Cook County amongst our African American population. Next slide. Another learning objective is really understanding the cultural values held by the village about suicide. And I always say that, it takes a village to raise a child. We've said that in many times, but in this situation and in this presentation today, in this webinar, we're going to learn that a child, it takes to really teach a village. So understand the cultural values held by the village about suicide, we'll tap into. Next slide. And then discuss the impact of racism and what it has on suicide and mental health. Some really poignant, interactive kind of real life examples coming from our documentary we'll share today. So I look forward to that. Next slide. And then hopefully develop a deeper understanding of the impact of suicide in the Black community. What some of us are learning right now as it comes face to face to us in our circles, in our homes, in our schools, in our neighborhoods. Developing that understanding of that impact is what we'll do today. Next slide. And also, you will learn the story of a loss, my loss, and how that impacted and changed my life and also change my trajectory and understanding of what I needed to do as a community member for this cause that I never asked to be a part of, wanted no association with, but now that I'm here, I am dedicated and I am fighting the good fight, as they say, for it. Next slide. In this video right here, we'll see a play of a short clip of the documentary While the Children Fade, to give a good understanding of where we're going today. Let's begin.
Let me know if the sound doesn't work.
You know that question people ask, you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m.
It's 10 p.m.
Do you know where your children are?
I hear that, and I say, yeah, I always know where my child is. You know, he's in a cemetery. His spirit lives with me, but he's in a cemetery.
Everything hard when losing a kid, but suicide is so painful because you're taking your life. You took your life from yourself.
I am 8 years old.
I don't want her to hurt, and I'm thinking like, my baby, what did she go through?
Suicide among Black youth is a really serious issue and public health crisis right now, simply because people are dying, and they don't have to die.
The part that social media plays, the rates of being bullied, the sense of, I don't belong anywhere, where's my place? That's a lot to deal with as a kid.
The hole in your heart, only you feel. Ain't nothing gonna fill it up.
Slide, please. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. So let's get deep and let's dive into the history of suicide in the Black community. But first, for context, I think it's really important to just talk about what is suicide and how we define it. So when we think about the definition of what is suicide, it is a death caused by a self-directed injurious behavior with intent to die as a result of this behavior. I want to also note that it is a public health problem affecting all of us, not just a situation, not just some incident, a public health problem. Public health crisis, by a matter of fact. And then there's no single cause to suicide. My father said once, the challenge with suicide is that it feels like they left with all the answers. And I can understand that. And so several factors we have to remember, and we're going to tap into when it comes to the causes, whether it's relationship, individual, community, societal, and the increase of suicide and how it protects against us, against it. I'm sorry. Next slide. So what is suicide? We know that Illinois suicide is the 11th leading cause. I think that's down to like 10 at this time. We know that there are more than 1,000 deaths each year. In our population from 15 to 34, we had it at a total of third leading cause, but now I think it's the second from the latest statistics. So we're at a serious crisis when it comes to how this has rose within the last 5 to 7 years. Next slide, please. In the learning objective, I wanted to also talk about the statistics of suicide in Cook County amongst African Americans. Next slide. And the impact. What we'll do is we'll look at a 2-minute clip of a press conference from our Cook County Board of Health, and our president, Tony Perwinkle, was speaking in 2020 about the pandemic and also what we are learning about suicide in our Black community. The numbers and what she speaks about, I think will bring some awareness to what we're speaking of today. So let's take a look.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful to be joined by Deborah Carey, our Interim Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Pony Arunkumar, our Chief Medical Examiner, Dr. Diane Washington, Executive Director of Behavioral Health for Cook County Health, Dr. Joyce Miller, Chairman of Psychiatry, Cook County Health, and Dr. Claudia Fagan, who is our Chief Medical Officer. Got it right this time. Okay. Good morning, and I want to thank all of you for joining me here at Cook County Health. The African American community has borne the brunt of the COVID pandemic, opioid overdose deaths, as well as a surge in homicides. And today we're here to talk about the alarming rate of suicides occurring among our Black residents. There have been more suicides thus far this year in the Black community as in all of 2019. Most notably, we're seeing an increase in suicide among young people. The youngest victim this year was only 9 years old. This is horrifying. It's not surprising that communities that have suffered the most are the ones who also have the least. The disinvestment, the redlining, the systemic racism has culminated in a crisis that once again hits the African American community the hardest. We have no choice but to do better.
Next
2020
slide,
is on
please.
pace to be the worst.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to play
This is
that
already
clip and also talk about the importance of how that brought into these next statistics when we talk about suicide in Cook County by ethnicity group. Now, this graph, of course, in this chart is from the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. And you can see the trajectory from 2016 all the way to 2020. And we know we have more statistics as we go, but it's so interesting to see how within a 3-year span, maybe from 2017 all the way to 2020, we saw the rise in suicides emerge within the Black community from 77 to 98, surpassing any other ethnicity outside of white in that time period. Next slide, please. And when you break this down, if you think about it, if we're 13.4% of the population as African Americans and 16% of us are reporting that we have a mental illness in the past year, that's over 7 million people, the combination of Houston, Philadelphia, and Chicago combined. Next slide, please. So, what does, and discussing the impact of racism, have on suicide and mental health? I didn't know those correlated. I didn't understand it. But as we continue to learn and we continue to talk and we continue to get more understanding, there is a great connection. Next slide, please. I would like to show you some new trends and insight that might be able to answer that question and kind of put the dots together. Next slide, please. In 2024, I sat in front of this computer right here and I thought about all the statistics and all the reports and all the journals that I read. And I said, wow, they're really speaking about me. They're speaking about my story. They're speaking about my experience within the mental health system from my son's first attempt at 12, my daughter's attempt, down to my son's death. And I said, I needed to let people know that, you know, this is a person and we're humanized. I wanted that to be something understood. So I thought about putting this together, and with the great help of Garrett Morgan, we came together and we combined and were able to tell the story of 3 women from the Midwest who had all lost their children by suicide. from age 11, 17, and 19. And like I said, it humanizes the impact and statistics of the reality of suicide in the Black community. We learn so much without having this being scripted or being even understand of what we were going to do. Next slide, please. In this clip, you'll get a chance to see some of the connections by our good friend, Dr. Janelle Goodwill, speak about how systemic barriers and racism has impacted the importance of us understanding how suicide and these relate. So thank you.
Historically, suicides have been higher among white Americans. However, recent findings show from teams like Jeffrey Bridge and Ariel Shefdahl that suicides among Black children in particular have increased. For Black youth ages 5 to 12 years old, they were 2 times more likely to die by suicide compared to white children of the same age. Since then, another new trend that's emerged from the data in recent years is that typically males and females, there's a pretty big gap in terms of who dies by suicide. Black girls have had one of the sharpest rises in suicides in recent years.
I went and spoke with a group of about 200 African-American boys with my fraternity. And one of the questions I asked the group of boys was, what stresses you out? What are some of your fears? A 10-year-old boy stood up and said, death. And when he said that, the room became silent. And after the little boy said it, other boys confirmed it. I guess they just wasn't brave enough to say it out loud, but a 10-year-old did. I think that's the number one thing that our children are dealing with, just about, am I valued in this world as a Black child? And that's very sad to hear. Are our babies traumatized just for being Black? Absolutely. It's the messages that they get.
I feel like I get looked down at.
How often would you say you heard the N-word?
It's an everyday thing.
They're told their hair isn't pretty. They're told that their features aren't beautiful.
It's part of my culture, and it's my heritage. It's being violated.
As you kept reading, it just added more and more hairstyles that were natural and mostly worn by Black people.
They're supposed to be a symbol of strength. But then we're told we don't need you to be thinkers.
So keep the political commentary to yourself, or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
We see that racism in its different forms impact well-being and development.
Show me the ugly child.
There are longitudinal studies that confirm that racial discrimination experienced by Black youth and felt by Black youth has direct implications for their mental health and suicide risk later on. However, racism is deeper than these interpersonal interactions. Racism is felt and seen in the built environment. So do I have access to mental health treatment? Do I have insurance? Are there places where I can go and have the freedom and joy and wonder of being a child?
Thank you. Next slide, please. So with all the clips and that we've come to, maybe we can take some time to think about a few questions or just kind of ponder on these things. Some questions to consider. How much do we know about the rise of suicides among Black females? What are we learning? What are we seeing? How much are we talking about it? How much does the community really grasp the difference that used to have a change where it was more a gap between the males and females? What focus are we putting in that? And then what factors are impacting the increase of suicide for youth age 5 to 24? And then lastly, the messages. What are we seeing that's impacting a child's racial identity? Longitudinal studies are saying, like Dr. Janelle Goodwill is saying, that these have a direct impact on their growing and their social ability to bond and continue to foster and grow. So it's more than just interpersonal relationships. It's in the built environment. Next slide, please. This slide also talks about what we learned about the stigmas from a mother who lost her child at 11. Let's hear her story.
From the time she was born to the time up to when I lost her, I go every which way that you could think of to how I could have prevented this. My daughter was under psychiatrist care at that time. You feel ashamed to say my child did this to himself, especially when they're so young, because you know you will be looked at as a parent. She didn't leave a letter. She didn't leave anything. Suicide is shunned upon. We don't do that, reality we do. Most of us think it, a lot. We just are ashamed to say it out loud.
Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday. We say thank you. Thanks for the present.
Next slide, please. Well, additional questions to consider in this clip is how does shame and stigma silence the community? If anybody had any kind of thoughts, and put it in the chat. I'm not sure if I can see the chat, but feel free to kind of put your thoughts in there. I would love to know. And then how powerful is the feelings of fear in discussing I'm sorry, the spelling check, discussion of suicide. Khadijah, who has become a great sister in bonding in this grief that we've both lost. The fear of saying it out loud was really powerful for me to hear, because I think that is very true. To say that you think it, but you can't speak it, and how that fear might be for certain people. And does age of loss play a part in seeking or receiving supports? Next slide, please. So with that and all in mind, there is a call to action. There was a call to action. Many of us know about it on this call. I see some familiar names. Some of us might have heard about it, but let's talk about it, because it was a time for change and a time for action. Next slide. In 2019, Bonnie, our Congresswoman, Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman out of New Jersey, called together the Congressional Black Caucus, an emergency task force on Black youth suicide and mental health. And this caucus came together and said we needed to form a panel of people who are experts and researchers, all the way down to policymakers, and talk about what is going on in our communities. Next slide, please. So on April 30th, with the establishment of the Congressional Black Caucus, that emergency task force was built. And that working group, like I said, was of researchers, academia, advocacy practice makers, persons who had lived experience. Next slide. And they came together and brought this report. This report brought just a recommendation to persons in the community and those who worked with our youth to understand what was going on, and some things that we needed to focus and harness on as we continue to see this public health crisis continue. Next slide, please. So it raised awareness. It identified gaps in research. It talked about best practices for practitioners, and ultimately created a resource document for all of those who come in contact with Black youth, like I said, in the healthcare settings, schools, neighborhoods, you name it. Next slide, please. And this is just a small quote about the report. There's so much work to be done within the schools. We must know that training and properly addressing the mental wellness of needs of Black youth is important. We must reverse the trends of suicide and ensure that more Black children and teens are receiving and engaging in mental health care. Let this report serve as an urgent call to action for all Americans. This was 5 years ago. Next slide, please. So with this call to action, we're also understanding that there is a cultural values held by the village about suicide. And that also interplays a lot in how we move forward and talk about and even try to silence the stigma and silence the shame behind mental health. Next slide, please. And developing a deeper understanding of the impact of suicide in the Black community is another learning objective that we're going to dive into in a few seconds. The impact of suicide in the Black community, a deeper understanding of it from persons who actually experienced it firsthand and what they are saying about this impact and what they are learning from it and how they're taking these stories and lessons from it. Next slide, please. So in this clip, you're going to watch a small segment of 3 clips from the documentary We Cry Your Tears, the Jamal Clay Story. This documentary was actually produced close to 3 to 4 months after my son's passing. And I feel after 5 years of losing my son, it was built on this understanding that I wanted to have his story told. I didn't know what it was, and I wanted the village to speak on it because I could feel the stigmas and I could feel the silence and I could feel the questions. And I felt like it was imperative to have that. So this was production that we kept together, and I just wanted to show some of the things that came out of this. Next slide, please. As I said, it was produced in 2021. We were grateful to have Yoshia Lewis and Rockstar Productions in our productions for this. And it tells the story of Jamal and what we learned as a village. It's also available on our YouTube page at Soul Survivors of Chicago. Next slide, please. We're going to play just a 30-second clip of persons who all knew Jamal, family and friends, and their first reaction to a loss. Thank you.
Out of everybody in the world, that was like the last person you expect to get a call about. Jamal, it's like, oh, because it's just not like that.
You know, I thought he was okay. I didn't think something like this would happen at all.
Nobody expected that. Nobody saw that coming.
It was a situation that happened in about 3 days that we had no control over. That's how quick it escalated, period.
I can't, and I don't know how, if I ever will, be able to wrap my mind around it. It's no making sense of it.
Why? 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 Why?
Next slide, please. All those persons coming together and asking the same question of why. How did this happen? We didn't think this. Last person to ever think that you would get a call about. All the perceptions that would come about, but this still occurred. In this next clip, you'll hear some testimony from myself and my mother as we speak more about what we learned as well in this short clip.
And many times I felt that he had something to say and would not.
We've always known that Black men can't cry, or Black men should just, suck it up, or there's no feelings involved. And I believe that what that means for many of us, and including my son, is that you have to suck it up and swallow it down and put it in a knot in your stomach.
Next slide. That leads us to the culture and the climate of the environment. In the loss and what we've learning about losses, sometimes there's a culture and climate that also matches with it. My son's loss was during a very, very challenging time for the world, where we were being exposed to something called pandemic, something called social isolation or social distancing, which I never did understand the whole context of, um, being unsure. And so within that culture and climate, that also came some understandings about how people were feeling in the mental health ways, particularly when it came to my son and his loss. Next slide. In this last video, we'll kind of put reference on the culture and climate and talk about that and remind ourselves what was going on that also could have had significant impact on the losses we saw, including my son during that time.
I just think that it was the current environment that really made him feel like the world was closing in.
This is determined to be an unlawful assembly. You must disperse the area. Officers are being assaulted by members of your group.
The Black Lives Matter movement and everything is put a big magnifying glass on, you know, what the reality is for young black men.
And when COVID hit, that changed his whole world. Because now adult folks, we all got paranoid, right? About the information that we were being given about social distancing and limiting the folks that were coming to your house or weren't, right? And so when those things kind of got put in place, all of these kids had to stay wherever they were.
And they did. Next slide, please. So some questions to consider. What were some of the perceptions that the village had about Jamal? Were there levels of disbelief from the village from his passing? Many people asked why, didn't understand, everything was okay. And what was most asked about the questions of his death? Next slide, please. As we close out, I wanted to kind of wrap up with some questions to consider about as we've had our time together. So what have we learned about suicide in the Black community? We've dived into so many deep discussions from culture and climate all the way to the impact of the built environment, down to a personal story about what we've learned. And in conclusion, thanks, Gordie. In conclusion, I want to say that there are some things I want you to take home with you as you go back to your normal daily lives and work, that might be helpful to think through. Next slide. If anything, I would love for you to come back with the understanding and your takeaway that suicide in communities of color is a public health crisis. It really is. African Americans are surpassing all other ethnicities in suicides, and there are multi-factors that impact a person's suicide risk. By all means, I want to thank those who joined us today. Those resources that are needed, I would love to know more about your specific need. We have links I have prepared that I can pass out, and those are also available on our website. Next slide, please. And I would love for you to keep in touch with us as Soul Survivors of Chicago. You can contact us at Soul Survivors of Chicago by our website, or also go to our email at ssofchicago@gmail.com. And just to harness on the mission of Soul Survivors of Chicago. Our mission, of course, is to educate and advocate and support underserved BIPOC communities in the prevention of suicide. We address the importance of mental health and wellness. We support those impacted by suicide, loss, or trauma, and provide innovative, I'm sorry, approaches to decreasing suicide for a strong mental health community. So at this time, I think we got a few minutes for any questions or comments or thoughts. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'll stop the screen share. If anyone wants to put questions into the Q&A, I'm monitoring that and I can read those aloud. Please feel free to. Thank you so much, Rafiah. I feel like I really appreciated that and I learned a lot. So thank you for sharing all of that.
Thank you.
Okay, I just got a question in. What's a piece of advice that you would give to a parent whose child is struggling?
Well, that's such a broad question. I would break it down in many ways. The first thing is the acknowledgement that you see the change and not being afraid to say that it's okay that I see a change. Putting specifics to it and not comparing it to the one she was or he was versus now, but also being empathetic and also relating to or giving some instances where you can normalize the feeling that they're going through. I think oftentimes as we get in adulthood, we forget that we were teenagers and we used to break curfews and run rampant and, lie and whatever the thing is. And, we graduate to another level of responsibility, but to normalize those kind of things is important. And then also, letting them know that there's no judgment zone when it comes to feelings, and there's no judgment zone. There shouldn't be.
Yeah. That's good. Another question came in. As a loss survivor, how do you take care of yourself?
Well, I start my day very early in the morning, before the sun rises. I do a lot of meditation and prayer every single day. That helps center myself to know how I feel about the day, how I feel about myself, how I feel about my situations, and kind of gives me a blueprint of how I want to work through the day, or if I need to do other things, or maybe just shut it all down, you know. I stay close to people who celebrate me and I celebrate them without it being a big, hard effort. And I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of like those persons who are in your corner and you feel them even though they might not see it. They're still there. So having that circle is really important. Having strength and a higher power is also very important for me. And then lastly, keeping the 6th stage of grief important in my life, which is meaning. And that's really, really something I harness on, and keeps me in a lot of ways focused and being able to handle the next days that come.
Any other questions, anyone? We've got a couple people just saying thank you for sharing. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing, Rafiah. I really appreciate it. I really, yeah, it meant a lot. I really want to go watch your documentaries now. That meant a lot. Yeah, we'll share all this information online. We have some, you can find some more information about upcoming programs and events on our website. Our next webinar is on the 23rd, and will be about overcoming insurance obstacles for mental health care. And we have a pickleball tournament coming up if you're interested. And then once you log off, if you wouldn't mind taking a brief survey, that would mean a lot to us, just to share your feedback about what you thought about the webinar and any ideas for future topics. So thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Please take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.